Realizing at this point that in everything that we have to do, collaboration matters, yes. Talking about the subject matter of advocating for women to lead, women to be represented in leadership spaces, standing up for one another. I believe we cannot achieve any of that if we do not have committed stakeholders and partnerships, people who believe that we can actually do the work. But also doing the work is also addressing that we as women were the ones who least have the financial resources to be able to move the needle. So if our governments are not investing in women-led, focused initiatives or businesses or anything, the UN resident coordinator was here saying that women are the ones who don't even want the wars, are the ones who end the wars. Many of the things that we as women are able to do and have been doing, they need money. But we often find ourselves at the mercy of thinking, how can we move our communities? How can we bring that social, economic empowerment that is much needed, especially for the continent of Africa, to move the needle? If the money is not there, if don't believe in each other by bringing money to the table. And money is a very hard topic in Africa to speak about, but we have to learn to talk about it. We won't be able to do anything without those investments, because when someone invests in you, they believe that you're able to bring the change. In my line of work at SAFE Foundation, and even now as a sister partner to She Forum for a couple of years, we are driving that conversation to say, even as we continue to come around each other, let's make sure that we invest financially in conversations, in initiatives that are going to ensure that we have the capital to do things. We launched in Tanzania last year when Miss Ini came to Women Lead Forum, an initiative that said, hey, as women leaders, we are tired of having to wait for anybody to come and give us anything. How can we start our own pocket where women are going to come around this network of a fund that we are the ones who started it, we're managing it, we're investing in it. So when we come around our leaders, or when we come around ourselves, especially the youth, because the youth see us on these stages, but they also don't understand how we've come to these stages. So let's invest in each other financially, but let's also not forget that collaboration matters. And when we say something, let's stick to it. The Africa that we want, the Agenda 2063 that we're talking about, let's have it now. Why should we wait until 2063 for that agenda to happen? It's the traditional biases in the African context, the cultural biases. They say charity begins at home. It even starts from our home, whether it's from the point when our families choose to educate a boy, before they can educate a girl. So it starts from there. So I think it has to go deeper into our communities, into the community leaders, then into our sisterhood, the conversations we have around the table. I will use my own personal experience when we go back to the example of 98 women being in a room at the Vote for a Man. Many a times it's actually my next sister who doesn't open the door for me. For those of us who have the knowledge, we come into these rooms, we go to these forums, we have women's conferences all the time. We hear the same echo, let's support each other. Women can be in leadership. We see women doing it. We have many examples. We have the Undersecretary, Deputy SG at the UN. But then you start to think that how many of us actually will be in those positions and actually think to open the door? I've been in places where my seniors, my elders who are seasoned leaders, because they see a young person, they can see that I value, they can see that I can get the job done, but they start to get threatened themselves by me being in the same space with them. And then the doors are often shut. So we need to have those conversations to say, then what happens if we are victimizing each other as women? Let's go to the basics of what really started. I'm a risk taker, and I'm just going to keep going until I achieve what I need to achieve. That's just how I am. But especially in the space of development and politics, there are so many young people that have been shunned away because they're going to come across those of us that are seasoned or even elders beyond our mid-40s now, but I'm talking about maybe other women older, and they will scold them, they will shut the door at them, and then they will give up. And then the narrative is women don't support each other. We can empowerment, be in leadership spaces, and so forth. And then we continue to perpetuate that, but then we take it and then we find self-blame and so forth. So personally, I think we should do more in walking our talk, opening doors for each other as women, but also really going down into starting it in the home to change traditional and cultural biases. Africa never had a youth representative at the top of the realm. When it comes to intergenerational dialogues, this is what my problem is, and I hope that as Africa we can resolve this. In the 2 years as I led that team consulting, our work was really to rally all the African leaders, because the issue is young people felt the gap, that they're not represented. There was no dialogue, there's no mentorship, there's nothing like that. We were able to convene about 80 million young people with 47 presidents. And that was my job. I literally had to be knocking on every government's door with each and every president to say, we need you to come to the table to speak to the young people about the issues, whether they're starting at home, the things that they're dealing with, always issues of placements and leadership and anything like that. I will tell you right now, everywhere you go, you see every discussion about intergenerational dialogues. It was sad for me to leave that post, but also an achievement in that we started conversations where leaders now started to consider having conversations with young people. If you look at all the states in the African continent, how many countries actually have young people under 35 who are advisory to our presidents about young people's issues? So it's one thing to have international dialogues, nothing wrong with that, but it's everything else to make sure that when you have the dialogues with them, there's co-leadership, but there's also placement. Place them in these places where you're having conversations there, because then when you lead by example, monkey see, monkey do, right? We teach it to our children at home. When they see you doing something, they're going to act on it. So it will be very hard, as the question was posed by the gentleman, as in how do we close this gap?